Good morning, everyone. Welcome to The Wire. My name is Chris Sauerzoff. I'm the CEO of The Wire. I'm joined this morning with Nicole Evans, Vice President of Sales for SafeWire. And our guest this morning is my friend Josh Uminski from Keller Williams. Josh, good morning.
Morning. How are you guys doing?
Great. So welcome, Josh. So Nicole and I don't know. Have you heard us yet? Have you listened to any of this?
Yes.
Are you lying? Are you lying?
No. I did a little prep before I came on. So
Good. Well, welcome. You know, the reason we asked you to join this morning, and you are the pod's first official guest. So congratulations.
Look at that.
It's an amazing honor. And I believe you just got a gift in the mail. So that was good, as that gift came because you were our first guest of the podcast.
I did. It literally sat in my office for a couple weeks. I thought it was cards that I had ordered. So I went to open it up yesterday and the cards still haven't came. So I opened it up and here it was, a bro box. So I was super excited for that.
Yeah, Nicole, I actually sent Josh a bro box because he took me to a Columbus Crew soccer game about a month ago.
Oh, that's awesome. What's a bro box? I've never heard of that.
It has like bourbon and he got me a Coke. It's got all kinds of cool stuff in it. I've never heard of it either.
It's basically like an all-inclusive excuse to drink in your office on Monday afternoon.
It's business related. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah. When I opened it, I was like, that's a very Chris thing. Like, I had never heard of it, but it's something like Chris would be like on the cutting edge of knowing about it. So
yeah, sending booze to people. That's very Chris. So welcome. So, you know, what Nicole and I do is we really dissect each week different types of real estate related wire fraud cases and other types of cybercrime that are happening, who is doing it, why it's happening, how it's happening. And oftentimes, more than not, we see situations, and this is happening directly to and because of real estate agents. And so we wanted to invite you on this morning. And before we kind of jump into all of that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm originally from Canton, Ohio. I love the Cleveland Browns. Super Bowl this year. I sold real estate for 8 years prior to the position I'm in now. I had my own team and everything. Now I am the team leader at Keller Williams Capital Partners in Worthington. So that's just a fancy name, fancy KW way of saying I'm basically like the CEO of the office. So new role. I've been in this position for 4 or 5 months now and rolling along.
So what's a role like that entail? What's your day-to-day look like doing a position like that?
It's recruiting, making sure the office is profitable, and then ensuring the agents in the office are successful. So those are the three big ones.
So in that role, we'll jump right in. How is this problem impacting, if at all, your agents and what you're seeing on the ground?
Yeah, so I always get nervous when it comes to wiring any sort of money for any part of the transaction. So, and now we're starting to see, title companies, instead of cutting a commission check, just wiring the actual commission to the office. We're starting to see agents allowing their clients to wire their earnest money to title companies. So anytime I see that, it always makes me nervous, especially if it's a title company that you're not really that familiar with or hasn't been around for 20 years, which it seems like a lot of them are popping up quite often anymore.
So have you had any of your agents or any of their clients, have you seen this happen firsthand?
Thank God, no. So, but I know it can always be right around the corner. So yeah, it's just stepping away.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nicole.
I was going to say, it's just interesting that you asked that, because I think that's part of the problem, is that agents don't see it as often. It's seen when it's in the hands of the title company or the consumer. And that's why agents aren't as aware as to how often this is happening, because it's happening more in the eyes of the title company or the consumer. And the agent doesn't see it because of the way it is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's break that down a little bit. So that's something, Josh.
And not to cut you off, Chris, but I think sometimes it's even one of my previous brokerages, it had happened. And while we were there, none of the agents knew. It's almost like they like to keep it hush hush. So where if it was me, I'd be letting everyone know, like, hey, this is one of our agents it happened to. It could happen to you next, kind of thing.
Well, especially as a broker, you have liability there. I mean, you would think you would want everyone to be buttoned up as much as possible.
Yeah.
But I get it. I also get it from a business standpoint. We saw this a lot with title companies. When title companies, if and when title company would get hit, the last thing they wanted to do is let their clients find out about it. Because real estate agents, Josh, this, they talk about two things. They talk about good things and they talk about bad things, right? So the last thing you want is a client who loses money and that real estate agent go around and tell everyone that experience. And so if and when they can cover it up, they do. And for a broker, its agents are its clients, right? So it's not, I mean, you're right. It's a teachable moment, but there's also a lot of fear and shame. And there's a lot that goes into the want to hide this.
Yeah. And I guess so being new to this role, I still come to it with a real estate perspective, an agent perspective. I kind of look at it as those brokers and those people in management always tell us, if you mess up something in the transaction, you can always fix whatever mistake. How much is it going to cost you? Right. So let's own up and do the same thing. So if we have an agent who one of their clients, gets hit with wire fraud, let's own up to it and, come out the other side, at least owning up to it and fixing it instead of just hiding it and pushing it under the rug where it can happen again to somebody else.
I think the overwhelming, when this happens, I think the overwhelming response is to push it under the rug.
Just like from a realtor's perspective. So because we're not in the office with you guys, what is the general conversation about wire fraud these days? Like, because we know what we talk about, but in a brokerage, like what's the general discussion and understanding about wire fraud? What do agents like the regular agents think about this? Like, what are their thoughts?
Yeah. So I think from an agent perspective, it's almost like a hassle, right? So it's just another step either we have to go through or our clients have to go through to sign up for some sort of, SafeWire, whatever it might be, that puts another step in place throughout the transaction. So, and in a world where everything is now and needs to be smooth throughout the whole thing, it's that extra hassle where I think it's never going to happen to them. Right. So why do that hassle? So last night, for instance, I hate going to the doctor, have to fill out stuff for our insurance every year. Last night, it's not working. It won't let me log in. But if I fill out this form that takes 5 minutes to fill out, we save like $1,800 on our insurance a year. So my wife's like, do this. Spent 20 minutes just trying to log in. By that point, I'm like, screw it. I'll pay the $1,800. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just that hassle. And that's the life we live in anymore. Where I think a lot of times agents feel that way when it comes to wire fraud. It's not going to happen to me. So I don't need to take that one extra step.
Well, the cool thing is, though, is like with SafeWire, it's something where the agent doesn't have to do anything. It's just the title company and then their buyer or seller. So the agent doesn't even have to take any steps, which is nice. And then they get just protection from something like that.
Yeah, that is really, really nice.
Hey, Josh, this just in your general experience, it doesn't have to be specifically to what you guys are doing or not doing there. What are you seeing from a agent perspective around things like email security? So whether do you guys force agents to have like two-factor authentication turned on, or from a password standpoint, or just a general email security standpoint for agents? What do you see from that perspective?
very lackadaisical. I can't tell you how many times I've logged in, and not just here, but in any brokerage I've been to, I log into or sign on to a computer, and it's all their information still logged into the computer, their emails, everything. So if you're doing that, what are you doing everywhere else in your day-to-day, business and life with your emails and passwords and everything else? So it's just so easy. And agents will use, not to talk bad about agents, but they'll use the excuse, I'm so busy and I forget. But at some point, there's accountability to it.
Well, it's not just that they forget, like for some things like two-factor and things like that, they didn't even know to turn it on, right? They don't even know to, and I know from a brokerage standpoint.
Password 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. And from a brokerage standpoint, it has to be difficult because these are all independent contractors. So how do you force agents to, if you have a business, so like here with our business, we can force all of our email accounts to have strong passwords and two-factor authentication, things like that. But if you are a brokerage and you're dealing with, 1,000 independent contractors, what do you do?
Yeah. I always laugh when I see that so-and-so at AOL.com come through. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah. And it's probably been, 12 years since they changed that password. Right. And that, that is the main infiltration that we're seeing right now. And so what happens generally is an agent who doesn't have, say, two-factor turned on and doesn't have a strong password, and just generally, you guys are all targets. So we're targets, you're targets, whether we like it or not. And that's not changing like that. Once you become a target and you're on these lists of folks that are being attempted to be phished or scammed, then that just happens continuously. And again, it's digital phishing, right? And so they find an agent, they get into that agent's email account through usually a phishing scam. And then once in that agent's email account, they just wait and watch, and they're watching to see what's happening and who's involved in the transaction and who the title company is, who the client is. And then they'll go in and they'll change their forwarding rules. They'll change their different filters in that email account. So any email that comes from the domain of, say, at World Class Title or at SafeWire or your client, that email will get basically funneled off from their inbox and moved to a folder that agent wouldn't otherwise check. So they then can get in, begin kind of orchestrating the conversation between the buyer or seller and title company or mortgage company. And to everyone involved, it looks like those communications are happening and coming through the real estate agent. So that's the kind of stuff that we're seeing. And so what happens generally is if fraud is successful, so let's say a buyer sends their down payment to the wrong place, oftentimes they don't even know how it happened. And so people like to think, and I've actually have had this conversation directly with an agent and with agents who their clients have lost money and they have no idea how. They think that their client has lost money. The clients aren't being the ones targeted, it's the agents, right? So you would have to work way too hard to try to, now it doesn't mean it's impossible, but the likelihood is that it's coming through the agent. So that's the kind of stuff that we're seeing right now, which is scary because it's happening and folks don't even know, even after they've lost money, how it happened.
Yeah, and they've made two-factor sign-in so convenient now for you. I mean, it's a push notification on your phone that you're sitting at your computer. When you go to log in to the email, you can get the push notification and see a code that comes across. So it's not like it's a giant hassle, to set that up. And just to take that one little extra step, is a huge thing.
Well, so from a broker standpoint, how do you enforce something like that? How do you protect, your customers and your brokerage customers from becoming victims through agents?
Forcing, I don't know. I think the only way is just to continue to try and educate.
Yeah.
And you guys are in the business, only so many are ever going to listen. So it's just continuing to try and teach and teach and teach. So it's not the shiny, fun thing. It's not Facebook or Instagram and how to get leads. So only so many people are going to pay attention to it.
So it's interesting. Like if I was a realtor, knowing what I know right now, if I signed up and took the classes and passed the test and became an agent, one of the first things I would do, well, I already have 2-factor set up on my email, but I mean, I would be spreading the word like about that, like wildfire, just seeing what we see on a daily basis. It's so easy to turn on. And if I was an agent and I didn't have that turned on and I found out what was happening and how easy it is for someone to get into my email, I would be scared. I mean, it's just so easy. It's just a stop. It literally just stops someone else from being able to log in. And it's just crazy to me. I don't get it. I don't get it.
It's so I crack up. We, again, a previous brokerage, we used to get these text messages all the time or emails. Hey, Josh, I want to look at this property. And it'd just be a random link. And I'd be like, I know better. So I would respond back, what property? But how many agents click that to see what the property is? You don't know. It's a random, and it'll be 678-432, like just this wacky number. I'm just like, you really click that? Or random email from somebody, hey, I have investment properties I want to sell, but it'll be a wacky email. Click the Excel spreadsheet, and it's a link. It's not even like an attachment.
Right. So you see that a lot with text. You see spoofing with emails. You see these emails coming in all the time. There's actually a brokerage I talked to down south of here, about 2 hours. I don't want to throw any, I don't want to make it too detailed about the information about them, but I talked to them and they said that they sent phishing tests to their agents once a month and they have a 70% fail rate.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I mean,
over 600 agents. I mean, that's alarming.
Yeah. Yep. And you hit those agents who don't have a lot going on in their pipeline, don't, hit them November, December, and they're, they need a sale. It's a gold mine. But
the phishing emails they're so good these days. They're so advanced and they look very legit. I mean, we've learned just with the spoofing of email addresses, you can make it look like it can be your email address. But if you look deep into the email, you can see that it's actually not coming from you. But I mean, the way they spoof emails is so good these days as well. It's scary. It's hard for people to be able to see if it's real or not. So you can see why it would be a high fail rate.
Right. And imagine if one agent clicks that on a computer that is used by the entire office and people are continuing to log in and log in and log in on that same computer. And they're all real estate agents like that. It's scary. But it's not something now.
I've ever thought about before. And when you said that you've logged into computers where people are still logged in, I guess I blindly assumed that all agents had their own laptops. But if they're sharing computers, I mean, that's a whole new level of dangerous when it comes to wire fraud. I mean, that's terrifying.
Whole brokerages can be hit in an instant.
Hey, Josh, what do you guys have in place from a liability prevention kind of standpoint at a brokerage level? Do you have things like wire fraud disclosures, things like that in place that you have clients sign off? You have agents sign? Do you have a brokerage policy around that stuff? What's that look like?
Yeah, so we have, your form that everyone has to sign that states we're never going to ask for you to wire us money or anything like that. But then we don't wire anything. So if we're wiring it, it's just to our agents. So we're not wiring stuff, back and forth to title companies, anything like that. And we have certain people who are allowed to send wiring instructions to the title companies for them to wire our agents' commission checks. So
what about your policy with your agents? If your agents are forwarding on wire instructions from a title company to a client, something like that, what about in a situation like that?
That it's one of those things where we don't know unless they tell us they're doing it. So they shouldn't be doing it. We try and educate them as much as we can. We explain, hey, you're having your client sign this form saying you're not going to do this, so you shouldn't be doing this.
Do you have anything in place with those agents, with your agents around not doing something like that? Like any kind of disclosure really it's like a policies and procedures for the brokerage that says you aren't allowed to do something like this.
No, we don't, as far as punishment or whatever with them. So just the form that they're required to have the client sign.
So where I'm going with this is if and when, so there's now legal precedent on the books that says if an agent facilitates something like this, the agent and the brokerage can be responsible at the 85% of that loss. So if one of your agents, say a title company, and we all know title companies who are sending along unsecured wire instructions through attached PDFs to agents. I mean, it's absurd, but they're doing it. And so if that email and that PDF is compromised, then one of your agents sends it along to one of their clients and they send money to the wrong place, you and that agent can be responsible up to 85% of the loss. This happened back in 2017 in Kansas, and it was about it was almost a $200,000 loss that the court found, and now there's legal precedent for that they were liable up to 85% of that loss. And so what E&O companies and E&O insurance companies are now doing and saying is that if you do these things, we consider it negligence and we won't stand behind those losses and we won't cover it, especially in cases of social engineering fraud. So that's something you might want to dig into a little bit, just to protect you on a brokerage side. You can at least say, hey, we warned our agents not to do this, and here it is in writing. Just a CYA kind of thing for you all. That's something that we're seeing at a brokerage level and an agent level as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because we do a 3-day, we call it quick start training with every new agent where that's covered, but it's nothing that they're actually signing off on or anything.
Yeah, it's something I would do. And again, it could be a teachable moment thing for you all at the brokerage, because it's not just about your agents. Your agents in often cases are just doing what they think is the right thing to do. It's hard to protect them against title companies who are doing the wrong thing. So, just a takeaway. Josh, any questions that you have for us, what we're seeing, what we can be helpful with, any value we can bring to any agents who may be listening to this?
Yeah, where you guys see this going in the next year or two? I think this is going to be a big moment in the next year or two as far as tech's concerned, and streamlining the process and the start to finish kind of one-stop shop thing where everything's going with loans and closing and everything like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that this will continue to drive the acceleration of a single platform solution for a lot of the folks in this space. So this has really been the thing that I've been on the soapbox on as much as anything in the last 3 or 4 years, is if we can't keep consumers' money safe in the traditional real estate transaction, then we're going to lose their trust. And if we lose their trust, then it's pretty much game over. And there will be folks that will have better solutions in place that will be able to do what it is we can't. Our biggest problem as an industry is our segmented data, right? And so now you have companies that are, like you mentioned, are doing kind of a one-stop shop where they're doing everything from the MLS search to, even before that, right? Online leads to MLS search to mortgages to discount brokerages to title to all of it. And they're doing it in a completely kind of single line, so they don't have to come out of that box. And so it can be safe. So I think that this problem, if it continues to get worse, will further to speed up the digitization of the kind of fully realized process. I think that, consumers, the mistake oftentimes the technology companies make is that they think that consumers will, or I think technology companies generally, when it comes to real estate, they think that they can just remove agents from this process, right? And they can just digitize all of it. And And it's been very clear and proven time and time again. I mean, Redfin is a good example of this. Redfin came out and they essentially went into business to eliminate real estate agents and quickly realized that, no, that's not the answer. Consumers overwhelmingly, over 90% of the time, want trusted professionals in their transactions. So they want the trusted people. They just don't want everything else, right? And so I think that technologists oftentimes undervalue what it is, the human trust and relationship in the largest financial decision people want to make and will make in their lives. And I think real estate professionals kind of underestimate the impact that technology can have and the value that it can bring in giving us the ability to leverage our time and leverage the how we use it. And so it really is the combination of the two. And I do think that these problems, and with what's happened with COVID, it's kind of put all of these things on a fast track and bumped the development. Really have put the development of all of this stuff on steroids. So we're seeing more money come in than ever. We're seeing more technology come out than ever. So it's going to be an interesting 5 to 10 year run. Yeah.
And to your point, I think it's so agents being naive that we're never going to, we're always going to be here, that the client needs us. And they will. But I think, so we make a lot of our commission on the back end. Everyone just thinks we make it by showing houses and selling houses, but really we make our money in getting from, in contract to close, those 30 days, those 45 days. In the future, I think these companies are only going to need us at the beginning for the client to trust us to say, okay, SafeWire is a good company. You can trust them. And then once they're in the system and you guys, or whoever it might be, Zillow, Redfin, take you from start to close, now our commission, starts becoming worth less and less and less because we're not doing that bulk of the work. Now we are just showing them the houses. Now we are just getting that trust with them and handing them off to that big company. I think that's really where the threat comes in.
That's right. I think you are going to be in a situation where you're going to have compressed commissions. You're going to be able to do more transactions. But at the end of the day, there's only so many transactions out there. Even if this accelerates the amount of transactions, which I believe it will. I believe we'll have more transactions out there than the average of 5.5 million a year. But what that's going to mean is agents who leverage technology are going to do more transactions, probably at reduced commission. And it's going to just leave less meat on the bone for the agents who are doing this either part-time or the onesie twosies. They're just not going to be enough reason for them to stay in the game. And I think we're going to see that, we've seen that this past year when you have seasoned agents who have been doing this for 10, 20, 30 years, who are struggling to maintain and grow their business. How are you doing that if you're just started? Right.
Yeah, and we're starting to see that now. I mean, where some of these teams are just doing volume that's crazy. And it's almost like you're seeing that K, right? But so if you think of those teams as the big technology company, they've figured out the process. They've streamlined everything. They have that help. Where if you're an individual agent, you're grinding and grinding and grinding, and you can't keep up. It's almost like the teams are the prelude to the big industry.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think that's the reality. So, and that's been coming, right? And unfortunately, this could have been the brokers, but they've given up everything to the teams. And the brokerage business is a lot like the title business. In a lot of ways, it's a race to the bottom where who can give away the most to get the least. And in their case, they do it to the agents. And in our case, we do it to the agents or the brokers or the lenders or whoever. So it is but there will always be a place for value. So how are we bringing value to our clients, to consumers, to the industry, to the people around us? There will always be a value to bringing value. There will always be a premium to it. Just like, Amazon didn't put Nordstrom out of business, right? In a lot of ways, Nordstrom is maybe not now because of COVID, but Nordstrom or Whole Foods, right? Like, so you look at, there's always a place for value in competing against digital competitors.
Yeah, value and trust. I would say trust is a big one too. I think trust is probably the most important. I remember years ago where it was get review, get review, get review. Reviews were, the big thing. And then well, Amazon pays people to review products, and you can't trust reviews anymore. So it's when somebody trusts a company, a person, whatever it might be, that's where you can now bring that value. But I think it all starts with trust.
Yeah, for sure. Nicole, what did we miss?
Not much. I think we covered a lot. This was good information. I really like this latter part too. It was really interesting to hear about how it affects the industry and where we're going. And I think you guys are spot on there. It'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, and that's what me and Chris have had conversations before where I think really it starts with a company like SafeWire starting the transaction right from the beginning. When you first meet that client, you're getting them signed up for SafeWire, and that starts the entire safety net. It's the entire process for the transaction. So
the nice part about SafeWire starting in the very beginning is that they've already done it. They've gone through the process. It's a memorable experience. And then they know if anything else comes in after that, it's likely not real. They're like, hey, wait, what happened with SafeWire?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, my friend, Josh, we appreciate your time this morning. Appreciate you joining us on The Wire. And
I need to get one of those shirts. I like that blue shirt.
I got a whole office for it, full of them, buddy.
All right. I'll be over.
We'll hook you up. We'll swag you up.
That works.
Well, if you're listening to this and you have any questions, comments, or complaints, go to Nicole. Please feel free to visit our website, safewire.com, and let us know how we can be of value to you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
you.